children like that who come from such very devastating background, they understand what the support that they received in their lives means, so they don't take for granted. I just find it fascinating and very inspiring to see how these children who received support become human beings with so much gratitude. And that gratitude really inspires us. And they give back to the community, they give back to the children. This next generation don't have to go through what they have gone through.
Welcome to the Awaken Magazine podcast, where we feature inspiring leaders who are helping our world awaken to love. I'm your host, David Trotter, and today I want to share with you an inspiring conversation with Kayoko Mitsumatsu. She's the founder of Yoga Gives Back. And in this conversation, Kayoko tells us the story of when she was leaving a yoga class, hot and sweaty, and challenged to give back to the nation of India, where yoga originated. We hear all about how she started her nonprofit, Yoga Gives Back, and how they're now empowering more than 3,000 women and children through microloans and education. And finally, we hear how you can change a life just for the cost of one yoga class. Hey, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the Awaken Magazine podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and YouTube. Click subscribe, rate and review the show. That's an easy way to help us spread the word to more people who will be inspired by conversations just like this one. All right, let's jump into my interview with Kayoko Mitsumatsu. Kayoko, welcome to the show. It is great to be with you.
Thank you so much, David, and Awaken Magazine for having me today.
Yeah. Take us back to the moment when the idea arose for Yoga Gives Back. What was going on in your life? What were the circumstances?
Yeah, good question. So it was 18 years ago, believe it or not. I was 47. I was doing a lot of documentary filming by then. I started in my 20s in Japan, and I was doing a documentary about microfinancing and social entrepreneurship, and in the U.S. And I'm now living in Los Angeles, so I come back from home and I started taking yoga class, and I started practicing actually every day with Ashtanga yoga, which is very rigorous practice. I love exercise, so it just fit me so well. So in between filming, I come home and I started practicing yoga, and my teacher taught me about philosophy of yoga as well, which taught me that first part of your life is about learning and experiencing, but the second part of your life is to give back based on what you have accumulated in your first part of the life. And that just hit me so hard. I just clearly remember I was coming out of the class really sweaty, but feeling so great, so happy, like everything is great. But then I realized, what do I do with my healthy, happy self from here? So when I learned that I should just give back, take care of myself and give back, that really hit me hard. Then I talked to my teacher and yoga studio owner. Like 17, 18 years ago, there were a lot of charity organizations and events in the yoga community for breast cancer, animal rights, especially HIV patients and so on. But there was nothing that focused on poverty issues and women's issues in India, where yoga is from, Mother India. So everybody I talked to said, that's a great idea. That's how it started.
Amazing. And so the original idea I'm hearing is this connection between microfinancing, because you were doing a documentary on that, and then the idea of yoga giving back. How did you put those two together, the microfinancing and the yoga component?
Great. Another great question. Well, in microfinancing, as you probably know, and a lot of audience probably know, is to give a small amount of loans for the poorest people in the especially developing countries or in America or who usually don't get any collateral, who don't have collateral, so they don't get any loans from traditional banking system. So microfinancing, which was started and developed by Dr. Mohammed Yunus, who won the Nobel Peace Prize for this in 2006. The idea is to give small loan small microloan to the poorest women, for example, to buy a bamboo instead of going to a middleman. So when she sells bamboo stool, the 100% profit comes to her, and nothing is taken in between by middleman. So this is a way to get out of poverty. So 18 years ago, yoga class was costing us about $10, $15. Today it's $30 to $40 in LA. So I was spending 10, 15 a class easily. And the yoga pants was costing, nice one was like $60 at that time, now $200. So when I thought about, well, wait a minute, I'm spending 10 to $15 to feel good and healthy, but people, poorest people in the country where we received yoga from, India, if they can have this $10 they, as a microloan, these poorest women, especially at the bottom of the ladder, can get out of their poverty and change a trajectory of life. So that's how I connected this for the class of for the cost of one yoga class, which was $15. You can change your life. That became a mantra, and that seems to resonate to a lot of yoga practitioners around the world.
And so there's a big gap between I've got an idea of how I want to help people to actually implementing it. How did you move from idea to implementation? How did that all unfold for you?
Yeah, I think there were a lot of, like a few very important ingredients for that to take place. One, I always believe that I studied this in Los Angeles, where, David, you're from Southern California, Los Angeles too. I think this city has some very special energy that, no matter how old you are, you're still writing a script for Hollywood movies, right? Things like that. So people don't stop from you doing something new, no matter, what sex, what age, where are you from, these things didn't matter. So when I came up with this idea, I had no experience about nonprofit or anything like that. um, Everybody said that's a great idea, and Los Angeles has a lot of serious yoga teachers, spiritual leaders who have been to India, who have been studying this philosophy for a long time, and they all wanted to give back to Indian support. They've seen the poverty and so street children, but they didn't know how. So I didn't know all these things at that time, but I think that's why I got a lot of support from the beginning.
And so, how did you go about developing relationships in India and choosing NGOs to partner with?
Yes. Initially, so I started with microfinancing. So I went to Grameen Foundation, which is a big Dr. Yunus's global headquarters in Washington, D.C. And I got lucky. They liked the idea to connect with yoga community to send the money there. So they supported us. But very soon I realized I really wanted to have a direct connection with the people who receive our money and see the real impact what we are doing. So it wasn't possible with Grameen Foundation. So I started to look in. It took about 2 or 3 years, just walking and talking everywhere I could think of. So one day I was in New York City practicing Ashtanga yoga. I and I just started talking to receptionists there at the yoga studio in New York City. And she said, Kayoko, I know somebody you should talk to. That was the beginning. And she introduced me to this lady, Miss Barbara Piner, who passed away since, but she is a very serious Vedanta Society disciple who was already working with many Indians in NGOs. So when I told her about my idea, she said, Kayoko, I know exactly who you should talk to. That was 2009. 2009, yes. And then I went to India with her in 2010 and visited different NGOs that she works with, and that's the beginning of our relationship. And so I picked two NGOs I visited through these connections in 2010, and we developed microloan programs and Sister Aid, which is giving education for young girls and orphans.
Wow. Those you're still working with those particular NGOs, or you've added more, or what does that look like now?
Yes. So after 18 years of doing this, and especially after meeting these NGOs, two NGOs, really feel like I hit the jackpot because these two NGOs are really spectacular organizations. The leaders of both organizations, one is in Karnataka. If you've been to India, it's in near Bangalore, just outside of Mysore. And the other one is in West Bengal, on the other side of India, on the Bay of Bengal near Bangladesh, near Calcutta. So we've been working with these two organizations since 2010. So it's been like 15 years, and we work very closely. I'm in touch with the leaders and managers, and we develop programs together. Yeah, so on. Yeah.
Amazing. So tell us about, and I believe you have more than two NGOs now that you work with. Is that correct?
Yeah, we added one, but it didn't work out. So yeah, right now it's just two.
Just the two. Okay.
Mhm.
So tell us about these two different NGOs and what they do specifically.
Yes, thank you for asking for that. So Dinabandhu Trust is one just outside of Mysore, who's funded by Professor Jayadev, who used to be a zoology professor, and he had a project in the countryside, and he started seeing these children running around without homes. So he realized there's some serious issue about orphan children. So he started his own home for 6 boys in early 90s. And then gradually he started to grow this. And so Professor Jayadev created this Dinabandhu home, which houses almost 100 boys and girls who have absolutely no place to go if we want for this home. So that's one organization. And also, this organization grew quite a bit last 30 years. So they now have elementary school to high school to serve for the poorest people in the villages. In the Chamarajanagar is the area they serve, and they call backward communities. It's based on basically comprised of the lowest caste families. So many parents don't have any educations. So now they give great education for boys, girls from these areas. And we came in, and now we created scholarship for higher education. So many boys and girls from these schools now go to college, and we take care of them until they graduate. So that's one program there. So we are supporting about 200 boys and girls and orphans together. And the other big program now is West Bengal, just south of Calcutta. It's a very vast area of agrarian villages. It's visually stunning, tropical trees and lakes and rice fields, but it's a very poor area. And here we work with NGO called Nishta, which was organized in 1975 by grandmother Prita Das, who was married very young age, and realized in the village a lot of young, brides don't know how to take care of families. They just were forced to marry at the young age, and they don't have any education. So she started teaching ladies, how to sew, how to write, and stuff like that. Was the beginning of this organization. Today, it's run by her daughter and granddaughter, who are my counterparts, and they serve almost 40,000 women, children, and grandmothers, and also men and boys, because it's important to engage both sexes when we talk about empowerment of women. So we work with them. We started with 50 women with microloan program in 2010, and over the years, with all the support we receive globally, now we offer 550 mothers every year with microloans, and we also give education funds for their little girls so that they don't get forced to go to labor or marriage. And we also now give 300 young girls with a 5-year scholarship for higher education. So here we see hundreds of girls now graduating with college degrees. There are a lot of amazing stories there I want to share.
My goodness. Wow. Thank you for sharing all of that. You know, unless you have been to India, and I should even say, unless you've been to India and actually been among people who live more in village areas, you do not understand the degree of poverty. I
Yeah.
first went to India in 2004 was my first trip, and I've been there a dozen times. And we connected about this at Yoga Expo. But for many of our listeners, they don't know this part of my life that I started taking teams when I was a Christian pastor to work with NGOs, a particular NGO there in southern India in Andhra Pradesh, and have done a lot of work raising money for water wells and orphanages and, just incredible work there. And, for me, when I first went there in 2004, and went to villages where it was literally mud floor, thatched roof house, ox is pulling a plow. You're like, what? I'm stepping back in time. This is back in time, right? And you don't realize it. And then when you start to see, as you mentioned, little kids who are running around streets that are not with families or they don't have education or whatever it might be, the systemic issues are just beyond the comprehension of many Americans. So when you began to talk about these issues back when you started this 18 years ago, what were some of the early challenges that you had as you began to share this vision?
Yes, I actually had never been to India when I first started this project. I just I have lived in my life to in Brazil, so I've seen the poverty
Yes.
firsthand, and I have been a documentary filmmaker. So I've been very aware and very keen to about the social injustice, discrimination, and so on. So that was my hook, you know.
Mhm.
So that's how I started this organization, because there was this um, lopsided situation where we spend so much money to feel good and happy, but as you said, that money can give them a child or mother a livelihood for a
Mhm.
year. So I think actually, when we started saying for the cost of one class you can change your life, it was a kind of easy sell. People got that idea, even if you have not been to India. If I say that, people understood. And then I started going to India in 2007, and I started filming. My friend, who is a Emmy award winning editor, who used to edit my programs, she said, you know, if you go to India, just in case, just take your camera with you. And I'm like, oh my God, you know, I always had a cameraman and a crew to film my projects, but now I don't have money, so I have to do it all by myself. And it wasn't tiny camera at that time. It was 3 CCD camera, but maybe this size. So, but I listened to her and I took it, and that was the best thing I ever did. So I started filming. Like I go to these houses through Grameen Foundation's connections to the woman's house, house, mud floor, you know, one room for four people sleep and everything, right? Everything is there. But they welcome us and give us tea, and I start filming everything. And long story short, one of these women I shot for the first time in 2007, her son, who couldn't speak a word of English, and he was 15 at that time, he graduated from medical school with a scholarship. He became our first star of a program, and now he's a dental surgeon. He wants to become a cancer surgeon, so he's still taking like residency again. But you know, like, so long story short, I'm sorry I deviated a little bit, but I just kept filming stories every time I go back, which is almost every year, and I try to edit and share the stories, because that's the only way, like you said, people can understand a little bit how like $10 can really actually change a life.
Mhm. You now have ambassadors in over 30 countries.
Hmm.
What is the role of an ambassador, and tell me how that has progressed? I mean, from one idea here in the United States to 18 years later, ambassadors in 30 countries. That's huge. Like,
Yeah.
walk us through that process.
Yeah. So very soon, you know, we realized that I have to raise money, right? So my first fundraiser in Los Angeles was I baked cookies for raffle and stuff like that, but that can only raise so much, and so we need more support. So I had some friends who volunteered for me, and some people say like, Kayoko, do you know this teacher? She sells DVD, and if we get her, we can get more fundraising and things like that. So we said, okay, so let's create ambassadors program, which means we reached out, we invited like famous yoga teachers to join us to give back, which most of people can't say no to, right? And because they benefit, they feel so blessed with the gift of yoga already. So it just started kept growing, and it's usually words of mouth. And a lot of people just come to us and say, yeah, I've been thinking about giving back, but this is perfect. So we ask ambassadors to host at least one fundraiser, awareness campaign, fundraising class in their community, and that's the way how we kept growing. Because we can only do so much from here, but when the ambassadors take actions, which we still keep pushing as much as possible, don't stay comfortable. You have to act, and so we have to create a lot of materials and help them. But yeah, that's how it's been growing.
Hmm. How do you help your ambassadors and supporters feel connected to the mission? Is it primarily through the videos that you provide, or what are the other ways?
Yeah, sometimes throughout the year, like International Women's Day and also June campaign, we do some Zoom meetings where they can meet with our fund recipients, like students, our NGO leaders, so they can really hear firsthand
Mm.
their stories. We also created a Save a Trip, which is a very kind of exclusive small group because we visit their homes. But we go to India every year with maybe 6 or 7 ambassadors, so they can really see how much their fundraised amount have impacted and transformed so many lives. And I think that is very powerful, life-changing experience.
Hmm.
Yeah.
You mentioned this early on, but I want to circle back to this and talk about that. If we were to compare, let's take a child who is without a home or without education, let's just
Mm.
say, and then also a woman who maybe doesn't have education, but she's already, maybe she's a teenager or she's getting married. Let's start with that child. If that child, what's the trajectory of that child's life if they get an education versus not getting an education? Like, I know that might sound rudimentary, but like, help us understand what happens in India.
Yes. Well, David, you stayed with the orphan children on the street. When I heard that, I couldn't believe it. So you know the reality, right? So if the child doesn't have a home or education, the chances are they'll be sold, human trafficking. You know, who knows what happened to this child's life? But the chances are very tragic.
Hmm.
Whereas if you get a home, caring home, like sanitary, physical care, good education, love. Professor Jayadev, who runs this orphanage, says love and acceptance is the most important. If these children get that, I've seen they just become amazing human beings, and I learn from them so much because I think children like that who come from such very devastating background, they understand what what the support that they received in their lives means, so they don't take for granted. I just find it fascinating and very inspiring to see how these children who received support become human beings with so much gratitude. And that gratitude really inspires us. And they give back to the community, they give back to the children, younger children, so they don't have to, this next generation don't have to go through what they have gone through. That is that is the amazing, like you ask about trajectory, but it's like a circulation.
Hmm.
I realized that once the gratitude is sparked, it's
Hmm.
just eternal.
Hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, I think that a lot of times people in the United States also have a negative connotation around that word orphanage. 'Cause
Mm.
right in the US, we
That's
think
right.
orphanage, oh my gosh, this sounds horrible. But in India, oftentimes orphanages are the best solution because culturally, Indians don't tend to adopt children.
Mm.
And I don't even know if there's enough families to adopt the number of orphans. I know when I did my documentary on orphans in India back in 2012, I think it was UNICEF indicated that there were 31 million orphans in the nation,
Yeah,
and an orphan. Oftentimes is designated in India as not someone who doesn't have a family, but someone who they might have family living, but that family's not taking care of them
yeah,
or can't take care of them.
yeah.
And so the kids are kind of left to fend for themselves. And so these orphanages in India, obviously there are not good things everywhere, but for the most part, people that are helping kids in India with these orphanages, it means they've got a roof over their head and they've got food and they're getting some sort of education, which is absolutely huge. And as you mentioned, I did a documentary on about 25 orphans living alongside a railway who were like a family of 25 kids just hanging out from age 3 to 23 at the time. And these kids just, they literally just beg and fend for themselves and oftentimes turn to whatever kind of drugs they can find. In that area, they even would buy whiteout, like old school
Yeah.
whiteout for typewriters and sniff it because it would give them a momentary high. You'd see kids walking around with white on their nose, and then
Yeah.
of course, just all the horrible things. Now, the amazing thing, like you said, though, is that they get this opportunity toward having life,
Yeah.
like some sort of life.
Mhm.
So let's talk about a young woman, because most of those girls are getting married in their teens, maybe 20s, but in a village situation, probably their teens. If she doesn't have an education versus and doesn't have a way to make a living versus getting a microloan, help us understand and differentiate between those two paths.
Yes. So before they got microloans, all these women were just staying home. Usually if when they get married, they live in the in-laws' homes and they become like almost like domestic servants. They
Right.
get zero respect, usually because they got married so young, they are not knowledgeable about anything. And so they're used very harshly in many cases by husbands and by in-laws
Hmm.
and have children at young age, so they're just busy taking care of children and family and cleaning up and cooking and everything, right? Once they joined the microloan program, I realized this program wasn't just giving the financial independence, but more importantly, this gives a chance for women to come out of the house and share their domestic issues. If there is a domestic abuse, they can now talk about it. And now, after 15 years, we've seen how these women became so powerful that if the man is like beating up one woman, the entire member, usually it's a 10 women in one group, they will go to the house, they will threaten this husband, and they really will take him to the police or to the local government so that he will stop this. And this really happened. And one woman, it's a good example. She had a daughter instead of a son, so she was beaten up and her husband cut her arm, and she went through the like physical abuse for years. Then she joined the microloan group. She became so strong. During COVID, her business, which is a rope making with a straw rope making,
Hmm.
that was the only thing that survived the entire village. And somehow the demand was so high, it became so lucrative that this abusive husband, who couldn't make any money because of the lockdown during COVID, begged her to teach him how to make ropes. And now he actually, they opened a little shop and she employed her husband as an employee. So there are stories like that. If they didn't get this opportunity, not just because of money, but also the really inner empowerment, they realize they have power, they have voice, and
Hmm.
they deserve better.
Hmm.
Mhm.
When you go to India and you look these kids, these women, these men in the faces and hear their stories, what does that do to you personally?
Yeah, that's a very profound question because that energy or light that comes through from their eyes, and Indian people are beautiful, big eyes too, but there is something very powerful, and they're not asking me anything. Usually they're just thanking me most of the times, or they're just sharing their stories, and my job is really to listen. But these eyes convey so much power and love, that and connection, that I think that is my like a juice that keeps me going. I miss it, like after being back in LA like for like 11 months, I'm like, I need to go back to India to meet these people to keep going.
Yeah, that's a big motivation.
Mhm.
So, as a nonprofit uh, leader, founder, it does get challenging, right?
Mhm.
I mean, the issues of, okay, there's the vision that you have, and then there's the what feels like a constraint of the finances.
Yeah.
How do you navigate that as a leader who's one, sees the enormous need? I
Mhm.
mean, enormous need
Yeah.
combined with your vision, combined with the finances. How do you navigate that just day to day in terms of like your own mental health, your own soul care?
Yes. Yes. David, you're a spiritual person, so like in Bhagavad Gita, which is India's ancient uh, Bible, almost spiritual book. It talks about take your action without thinking about the fruit of your action, right? Which I totally agree. But when I run this organization, I'm often asked, "Do you have a business plan? Do you have a strategic plan?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not supposed to think about these things." But obviously, realistically, I have to think about how to run this organization. I need to have a budget, and I need to have 3 year, 5 year vision. So, yeah, it gets stressful quite often. But as I said, when I think about the need and the change we can create, uh, I just feel optimistic. One time, somebody from India, the teacher, yoga teacher, told me, "Kayoko, you're doing a divine work, so the money will come. So don't worry about it." And I'm like, are you serious? I really wanted to believe in his words, but I couldn't because on a daily basis, it's very hard. Right now, I'm like thinking about how to fundraise every day. Um, but I can sleep every night, right? Sometimes I worry, but most of the times, somehow we keep going. So maybe that's what he said about divine divine work. I'm not sure, but we are not sinking, and we are because I believe very strongly that there are 300 million people practicing yoga in the world. $100 billion or more is generated from this business. So if we keep going, keep hitting everybody to join a movement and give us just one class yoga fee, I think we need to get somewhere, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I know you're not supposed to think about the results, but if you might be thinking about, like what are those dreams? What are those desires that you have for Yoga Gives Back in the next few years? What would that be?
Thank you for asking that. So this is 18th year. So in two years, we will celebrate 20th anniversary, right? 20th anniversary. So I like to get to $1 million kind of operational budget by then. We have a long way to go, but as I said, if everybody 300 million people give us $1, we can easily get there, right? So that's one goal, but it's not just monetary goal, but the impact that we can create, not just like India, but also within the global yoga community, is very important to me. That yoga is not just for yourself, it is supposed to take care of yourself and give back. Karma yoga, seva is the ultimate one of the goals, important goals of yoga. So I like to see with this more funding, we can do more effective marketing, and reach out more global yoga communities. So this becomes like a norm. It becomes part of teacher training everywhere that you have to serve if you want to become like really yoga teacher, things like that. And I'm sure if that happens within the yoga community, which is happening slowly, this will become a number and impact in India.
Yeah. You've got coming up the global gathering for India. What
Mhm.
is the date on that? What is involved? How can people get connected to that?
Yes. So every June, the whole month of June, we call it a global gathering for India campaign. So we ask everyone, these 300 million yoga practitioners or teachers or friends, to host just one class any day, anytime. Um, June 21st is International Yoga Day, and around that time is summer solstice. So a lot of events happen around that time, anyways. But any day during the month of June, we want you to join us. Our theme this year is unity with action. So we would like to really unite with this everyone taking action.
So if people want to be part of that, do they need to sign up as an ambassador or host a class and then raise the money from that class and then donate it? How would it work?
Yes, if you go to our website, we already have that June campaign, Global Gathering for India, on the homepage. So you click it, and we just have a simple way to host a class or host event. It can be tea party, it can be book reading, whatever. But you just register, and then we'll put that in a calendar, and we'll follow up with. You get the resource like a logo and template and things like that, and then you can just send out your donation after the event, and will support more people in India.
I love that. When people go to your website, what are the different ways to get involved beyond the global gathering for India? I know there's donating. Is there opportunity to become an ambassador or volunteer?
Yeah.
Help us understand that.
Yes, thank you. One of the things we like to really grow is a monthly recurring donation, which starts at $10. $10, so $120, that can give a woman's group a microloan seed money. It costs only $20 a month for a girl or boy to continue college education for a year. It's $250 in our program. So it's about $20, which can be just a salad in Los Angeles today. and $40 a month can give a child, destitute child or orphan child, a home and education. So this is a very strong program with impact if you just give monthly, because that becomes our sustainable revenue for operation as well. So we really encourage that. And then we also have a corporate partnership program that we love more and more yoga business, wellness business, spiritual business people to join.
Wonderful. And all of that information is at yogagivesback.org. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. And then, of course, on Instagram, Yoga Gives Back. I love that. Kayoko, if someone's listening and they're kind of feeling on the fence, like, I'm thinking about like wanting to give back. This kind of sounds like an opportunity that might be a good fit, but I don't know. I mean, I got a bunch of bills and, I'm busy and I don't know. What encouragement would you give them?
Yes. If you're healthy, if you if you have a blessing in your life, just think of people, who have no blessing at all, even especially a child who's sleeping on the street today, and just $10 can give them food, clothing, so on. I think just put things in perspective, you know. Of course, there are a lot of needs in this world today, so you have choice, but I just really focus on people who especially benefit from the wisdom of yoga or meditation or chanting or whatever that come from Mother India. Let's give back.
Mhm. Thank you. Thank you so much, Kayoko, for what you're doing. Amazing.
Mhm.
I love the nation of India, and I love that you're caring for that nation and the kids and women and men in your own very powerful, unique way. Yogagivesback.org. You can find that link in your show notes. If you're listening on your phone, you can swipe up and click on that link now. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Namaste.
Namaste. Thanks for listening to the Awaken Magazine podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and our other conversations, would you mind taking a moment to leave a 5-star review and maybe even a comment on Spotify or Apple Podcasts? That's one of the ways that you can give back to the show and help us reach more people. And of course, feel free to share the episode with a friend. And if you're not already on our email list, we send out an inspiring email every Monday morning full of articles and interviews. Just head on over to awakenedmagazine.com and click subscribe and join for free. Our hope is that all the resources we share will help our world continue awakening to love.